Hello everyone and welcome to my full video conversation with Roo Yori. Roo is an advocate for dog adoption. He was a finalist at the 2016 National American Ninja Warrior competition, and he is an assistant lab supervisor for a next generation sequencing lab at Mayo Clinic. Roo adopted two pit bulls, one named Wallace and one named Hector. Hector was actually a pit bull from the Michael Vick case. Wallace became extremely successful in frisbee competitions, which is something that pit bulls are not stereotypically perceived to be successful in. They're usually put in activities such as weight pulling that are seen as more physically strenuous. However, Wallace excelled in frisbee. He was the 2006 Cynosport World Champion, and in 2007 was crowned the Purina Pro Plan Incredible Dog Challenge National Champion. A book was written about Wallace and his impact. Upon starting the book tour, Wallace collapsed, and when they brought him into the vet, they realized he had cancer. Roo and his wife decided that they were going to create a bucket list for Wallace that included riding in the sidecar of a motorcycle, meeting Betty White, completing a hole-in-one, amongst many other things. And the amazing thing is they accomplished almost everything on that bucket list. We're going to get more into Wallace and what he has taught Roo, but also another part of Roo's story is his involvement in American Ninja Warrior. He participated in the competition because he loves being athletic and he loves obstacle courses, but also he wanted a wider platform to spread awareness about dog adoption. In this conversation, we talk about success, fear, staying motivated, and what pit bulls can teach us about how humans treat each other. In addition, keep an eye out for the podcast component of our conversation, which will be out in about a week, where we dive into some of the details that we could not analyze in these video clips. Without further ado, thank you very much for watching, and here is Roo Yori. I wonder if you can tell me more about just like your educational background, what you studied in college, that sort of stuff?
Sure, yeah, I went to St. Mary's University in Winona. Got a biology degree. I was originally pre-dental, actually. My big plans were to become a dentist, go to dental school, but senior year of college, I had a soccer game, or my, what's it called? It's basically like the MCAT for dental school.
Oh, yeah. Whatever it
DAT.
is. Yeah.
DAT, there you go.
Blocked it out.
Yeah. So I never took it, so
yeah.
Whatever. Had a soccer game or the DAT, and it ended up going to the soccer game, and I was just like, if I'm really trying to make this decision, maybe I don't really want to be a dentist type of thing. So,
yeah.
But I was pre-dental, finished up my biology degree. Mayo Clinic was right down the street, here in Rochester. So after college, stayed a couple years to actually be an assistant coach for St. Mary's University. Tore my ACL after college, actually, because I was had some aspirations of trying to go semi-pro and stuff like that after college for soccer.
Yeah.
But tore my ACL. By the time I was recovered, didn't have quite the passion and whatnot for it. But I was like, well, maybe it's time to go out in the real world and put in my application to be a lab tech at the clinic. Got hired, and that was 2001, and I've been here for the most part ever since.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you're still working at Mayo Clinic?
Yep, I am working at the clinic. I am now an assistant supervisor for a lab there, next generation sequencing lab. Had a little hiatus in New York for about a year and a half. I actually got an offer to work full-time with dog rescue, specifically pit bulls.
Okay.
Really cool opportunity. Loved the job. Didn't really appreciate my boss very much, so
yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it was not a good situation, unfortunately, which was, like I said, really unfortunate. But we made our way back here and got our feet back.
Yeah.
Made our way back here, back on our feet, and got settled again, and
back to Mayo.
Yeah, back to it.
So, how long have you been involved in athletics? When did that start for you?
4 years old.
Okay.
I've played soccer ever since I can really remember. So, I would say we started back in Dixon, Illinois. When I was in kindergarten, I think. And I've always been mainly a soccer player, but I've just always loved anything athletic and challenges and that kind of thing. So I've been a wrestler, played volleyball. what else? I joined track my senior year of college, just to do it because I was like, that's the last time I'm gonna have the chance to do it. And
yeah,
Clara,
difficult.
and my now wife was on the track team, so I had a little bit of motivation to join that and get to know her a little better.
Yeah.
So I was like, it worked out well for me. But
yeah,
so I mean, pretty much any game that I can play, I enjoy it. So.
And what about animals? When did your passion for animals begin?
Pretty early as well, I would say. I always wanted a dog when I was growing up, but my parents never quite gave in. I loved them. I got all kinds of other pets. I had some turtles, I had a little parakeet, I had lizards, I had an iguana at one time.
Yeah.
Most of the little lizards, but I did get an iguana. I had to rehome the iguana when I went to college because my parents weren't really interested in taking care of that one.
That's so lovable.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so and it was probably a good thing, I'm sure that my parents would have ended up being the ones to take care of it because I wasn't around that much when I was in school. I was always involved with other activities. I'd go to school in the morning. I'd get home at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night because either band practice or choir practice or soccer practice or something that I was involved in. So I just like doing stuff, like there's something I'm like, oh, that might be fun. I want to, see it, experience it, and have a good time with it. So.
What did you play in band?
Trumpet.
Okay.
So yeah, main instrument was trumpet. I dabbled a little bit with saxophone, drums a little bit here and there, but it's mainly trumpet.
Yeah, I was in band as well.
Yeah?
It's like the best community.
Oh, yeah.
I love band.
Yeah. What did you play?
I started off with trombone, believe it or not, but then
Yeah.
I decided on something my own size, so I switched to flute. I needed like an adjusted trombone because I couldn't reach 6 positions, so they needed to give me like a smaller one. At that point I'm like, this instrument is not for me. Yeah, I can reach everything in the flute fine. So when did you first hear about American Ninja Warrior and kind of Warrior and start pursuing that?
I don't know. I mean, I think it might have been, honestly, I'm not sure. I know it was before 2016. It was a couple years, maybe 2012 or so, 2012, 2013, around that time. I wanted to, I just saw it on TV, you know, so I just saw it on TV. I've always loved obstacle courses, and like, I just think they've been fun, We had like an obstacle course came to the university for one of the parties or something, and then it was awesome, like all these OCR races. I'm not a big fan of running, but I'll run to get to the next obstacle so I can, try that obstacle. So American Ninja Warrior, there's no running. It's just like the biggest, baddest obstacles that you can find, and I'm like, all right, it's good. So so as soon as I saw it, I was like, it was something that I knew I would enjoy or would have a great time trying for it. I didn't apply right away, and so I had some other conflicts. It never really worked out, and so I just kind of watched it and became a fan of the show a little bit, but then when it was finally time where, I thought it could work out, threw in my application and was lucky enough to get the call.
Okay.
Yeah. And
how do you train for something like that? Do you have like giant tubes that you can just like scale in your backyard? How do you do that?
No, it's tough because we don't know what's coming, you know. They change the course every single year. They change the course from city to city. That's kind of the point of it, is to kind of think up new things that are going to challenge us, and we don't get to try the course ahead of time.
Okay.
So we're really preparing for the unknown, and so you just try and think of things that that might translate to what they're going to throw at you. It's a lot of hanging stuff, so you're doing a lot of grip work. Just trying to grab onto things, hang from things, swing from this to that, jump from this to that. It's basically a game of how do you get from point A to point B in the hardest way possible and see if you can still do it. So you just kind of create some of those scenarios here. A lot of people build stuff in their backyard.
Okay.
I haven't yet. I do what I can. CrossFit Progression has been awesome. One of my good friends owns that, and he lets me kind of go off in the corner and do weird stuff to try and ninjify the workouts as best I can. Fortunately, I'm working with Jets actually to create a Ninja Warrior space here in Rochester. So
wow.
I'm really pumped about that. So
that's so cool.
Hopefully that will be ready in September. So
yeah.
So we'll start going with that. So I'll actually have a place to train, you know, a little bit better, and you know, hopefully try to keep up with these young guys.
Yeah. Well, I think that people find obstacle course a lot more interesting, like you said, than running, because it's so dynamic. So I can see why that'd be a good thing just to have for the community.
Yeah.
You're saying.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be fun.
Oh, cool. So I want to dive into more of. Would you call it like your alias, your Ninja Warrior alias, the K9 Warrior?
Yeah.
Like I want to get into that, but before we dive into that and sort of like your mission in this competition, can you just tell me about what was going through your mind when you approached that obstacle course? Because you qualified for nationals. Like what went through your mind when you were going through that whole first run?
Yeah, you know, I think it's been really helpful that I've had a lot of competitive events in my life, you know, and so I kind of know how to kind of gear up for those type of things, but I was just, I don't know, it was fairly overwhelming, you know, and you look at the course and I was confident that I could do it, but we only get one shot and we don't get to try it at all beforehand. So it's like, I know I can do it, but will I do it?
Yeah.
The one chance that I have to do it. And so you're just trying to prepare. I visualize myself like going through that course over and over and over and over and over again. Fortunately, I was able to recover. I was kind of in the on-deck circle, and I kind of had some nerves come over me, and you know, just like, holy cow, this is really happening. You know, this is it. You know, I kind of felt a little bit of pressure because I enjoy the competition, but like you said, I kind of have this other mission out there, and I knew that if I did well in the course, then it would probably be a better chance that I get featured on the show and, you know, that kind of stuff, and then it'd be a great opportunity for the dogs. So I was kind of putting that pressure on myself a little bit, getting a little nervous, getting a little shaky. But then, fortunately, I wasn't running at that time. And I was able to pull myself together and then just refocus. But when I took the starting line, I was just pumped. You know, I was like, I saw it. It was I don't know. I like that challenge. I like that pressure. You know, I tend to perform better under that like type of show pressure, and I was like, all right, this is my time to put the pieces together and do what I do. So unfortunately it worked.
And you pulled it off.
Yeah. I had a very specific game plan. It was my first year, so I wanted to be really conservative because like I said, I hadn't touched any of this stuff before, and you know, you see like Drew Dreschel and Joe Morales, all those guys just flying through it, you know, Jake Murray, they're just like, you know, they just go.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I could really do that, to be honest. And so I was like, but I knew that if I made it to that buzzer, it didn't matter how slow I went. If you make it to the buzzer, you get to move on.
Oh,
and so
okay.
That was my goal.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't mind if I'm not the fastest time out there.
Yeah.
My goal is to get to the buzzer. I wanted to get to the top of the wall, hit the buzzer, and guarantee me moving on. And so that was, I did that. I was very deliberate with every obstacle, with rest in between every obstacle, and fortunately it worked out. That first year anyway.
Yeah. Was
This
it
year,
just a
not so
blur?
much. It's alright. Not kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
But not really, to be honest. Like, I vividly remember a lot of those things, to be honest, still today.
Okay.
So, and the thing is I was trying to go to sleep, because a lot of people don't realize this, but the city qualifier and the city finals are filmed back-to-back nights.
Oh,
Wow. They're aired apart, but, you know, they have everything set up there, so they do all the filming at once. And so I was,
my gosh.
yeah, so you're filming through the night. I was trying to get some sleep the next day to get ready for the finals night, because I have to go again.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I just saw the course.
Yeah.
Saw the course again and just got so pumped up, so excited again that I maybe got an hour and a half of sleep, you know. And
Okay.
it wasn't very good rest, but but I was happy to do it, I guess.
Yeah. So you mentioned, so that was in 2016?
Yes.
And
yep.
so you went to the Nationals.
Yes.
And what happened there? Tell us about that.
Nationals was awesome. So I was, actually, can we back up a little bit?
Yeah,
So the hitting the buzzer let me go to the city finals.
Okay.
That was kind of my goal. I really wanted to complete the qualifying course and then just do as good as I could have on the finals course.
Okay.
Because there's the city qualifier, city finals, and then national finals.
Oh, okay.
So, so when I competed on the city finals course, I really wanted to get to the salmon ladder because I like the salmon ladder, and I thought it'd be cool to do the official salmon ladder on the show, you know.
What's the salmon ladder?
The salmon ladder where you have the rungs on each side,
Oh,
you got the bar, you gotta
yep.
jump the bar up,
Yep.
you know. So I was like, all right, well, I completed the course the first night. The salmon ladder is right after the warped wall, so I'm like, that's, you know, definitely doable for me. And then it was an hourglass drop where you basically have to drop down onto a trampoline and then it springs you back up to these boards that are lopsided and you have to grab onto.
Oh, I know, yeah. I know
So,
what you mean.
yeah, so trampoline, hit or miss. You know, that's a crapshoot. But I made it to that point and I was actually right on the bubble. And Lauren Ball had the fastest time and he's been on the show every single season and he was up. And it was, if he made it past where I did, he went on. But if he fell, I went on to Vegas. And I was fully expecting to say, well, good job, Lauren. It's been fun. This was way more than I expected. You know, to make it even that close to going to Vegas was like, I was pumped, you know. But then he actually fell on the rolling log, second obstacle.
Okay.
And I was like, I was in shock. I was like, does that really mean, like, it didn't sink in that I was actually going to get to go to nationals. And at nationals, it was still like, I'm just like, am I really here? You know, like, I did not expect to make it that far.
Yeah.
Because I trained with some of these guys, you know, and, you know, if I would have picked 3 people out of the 8 of us that would have made it to nationals, I probably wouldn't have been one of them, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But that's how Ninja Warrior works, you know,
Yeah.
because one little slip here or one, you know, you never know what's going to happen. And like I said, I think I was really able to draw from the competitive background and really just kind of be able to perform under that pressure and that kind of stuff. So when I went to Vegas, my goal was to make it through stage 1. So I really, really wanted to make it through stage 1. I thought that would be doable. Unfortunately, the one obstacle that I had never really done before, the jumping spider, was the one that gave me trouble, and unfortunately went out on that one. So, but it was a tough course. I think I was finished about middle of the pack. You know, I made it through the snake run. A lot of people were going out on the log drop. A lot of, you know, very experienced Ninja Warrior athletes. And so it was kind of cool to make it past some of those and, you know, kind of confirm that, you know what, maybe I do belong here.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So you are called the Canine Ninja Warrior, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correctly? So what does that name mean?
Well, you know, I had been doing a lot of dog rescue work before Ninja Warrior. Like I said, I was offered a position, you know, to do full-time dog rescue stuff out in New York. For the decade before applying for the show, my wife and I were involved with volunteering, you know, getting the word out about rescue dogs, getting the word out about pit bulls. Wallace and Hector passed away in 2013 and 14. They were such a huge part of what we did for the dogs that I wasn't really sure how to continue, I guess, without them, because, you know, I'd be invited to events and they'd want to see Wallace and Hector, you know, and that's how I set it up and that's what I wanted to have happen. But when they're not there anymore, it's like, you know, how do you manage that? How do you move forward with that? And I was struggling, to be honest, but I saw this as an opportunity to maybe, you know, fill that gap a little bit, you know, without them here. And I was like, it's a huge platform. Why not have some fun, because it's fun, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it to just be, hey, look at me, I'm doing obstacles. I was like, it's a huge platform, let's do some good with it. And so let's reach a different audience. The general public. I'm never one to try and preach to the choir. I never try and do that. I try and get outside the circles, try and engage new people. And so I just thought it was a really amazing opportunity. And if I got the chance, I would want to take advantage of it. So I just said, hey, let's promote some dog adoption on here. I couldn't. We're not really allowed to do any logos or anything, so I was kind of hoping I could maybe have a Wallace the Pitbull Foundation logo on the shirt and that kind of stuff, but it's just not allowed. It's primetime TV, so they control all the ads and that kind of stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm still want to do something, so I'm like, I'm just gonna wear a shirt that says "Adopt a Dog." I was like super general, like. That's what I want to do, Everybody is always asking me, now, how can I support Adopt a Dog?
I think it's like, that's your foundation.
Yeah, they think it's like an organization or a program. I'm just like, just do it. Just do it. Like, you want to support it? Just do it. It's not something you support, it's something you do. Go to the shelter, adopt your dog. So, so it's been awesome, but at the same time, it's been kind of funny.
Yeah. So I want to focus in on Wallace, because that is who the book was written about, which we've got, might as well just pull it out. We got it right here. Yeah, so that's what this book was written about here. And also, you wrote a book, Wallace and Roo, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that one's the new one.
Yeah, can you talk about how you first met Wallace?
Yeah, Wallace came into the shelter here locally, and Clara was working at the shelter. I was volunteering there, and he just was a naughty little dog that had a little spark in his eye. And that's pretty much where we met him. So Clara called me up, or I went in to volunteer, and Clara's like, you gotta see this dog. And I looked over, and he looked up at me, and just like you could tell he had a little naughtiness to him, a little extra gears to him as well. Yeah. But and so we just kind of met him there. It wasn't really this super connection at first, but he was having trouble in the shelter, and so we kind of started working with him a little bit just to try and keep him sane. It was a really stressful environment for him. He was a super driven, super energetic dog, and so without like a constant outlet, he would find things to do, and they weren't really mostly appropriate. Okay. So, but when I'd go in and I'd work him, there was another staff member there, Adam, who was kind of led up a weight pull club. Okay. And so that's kind of one of the things that people do is weight pulling. It's like a tractor pull for dogs.
Yeah.
You kind of get a harness on him, let him pull a bunch of weight. Oh. So I was like, maybe he would like that. And so I said, I'm not sure. I didn't know anything about it, but figured give him a shot. And he did. When I'd go work him, he would tend to calm down and be a little easier to handle. So, I'd just try and do that as much as I could. But he was still, he was not an angel. Still having some issues, but for some reason, my wife and I kind of wanted to step up for him. We saw something in there that, we thought that we could work with, and that maybe he was being targeted. Not, like I said, he wasn't an angel, but I felt like there were other dogs that weren't angels either, and they didn't look like he did, and so they weren't as concerned with their behavior, and I thought that, I just didn't like that inconsistency at the time. So we stood up for him and took him in as a foster originally. Had another dog that liked to play Frisbee. Happened to see an ad for somebody that wanted to start a disc dog club here in Minnesota through the Mayo Classifieds. Yeah. And which ended up getting taken down that same day because he wasn't selling anything, so it broke the rules. But I happened to see it in like the 2 hours that it was up.
Wow, that's fortuitous. That's interesting.
Yeah. So actually, same friend that owns the CrossFit gym now, Josh. He came over to the house to look at Ajax, which was our first dog that we adopted, and said, yeah, he's good. With a little work, he'd be great, and that kind of thing. So we got involved with that, and Clara used to play fetch with Wallace at the shelter, so she said, why don't you give him a shot? And I did, and I guess the rest is history, as you say. So, yeah, it was crazy. And he was just naturally took to it. And it just kind of, that's when we really started to kind of create a really good bond and work together and that kind of thing. So, and he loved it. He loved it more than weight pulling. And so it just kind of became our thing, you know. Yeah. And I still wasn't convinced that we would adopt him because, you know, he was not good with other dogs. Okay. And we weren't sure if we really wanted to rotate. We figured, you know, if he can find a home that doesn't have another dog, you know, that those people could, you know, devote their time to him, you know, but yeah, most of the people that have a dog like Wallace, they're working to, you know, they're very high driven, involved with dog sports, they typically have other dogs. And so they're not necessarily looking for another dog that wouldn't fit into their current situation. So we didn't get any like bites on adopting Wallace, and so well, we were like, well, we seem to be doing pretty good. He's happy here, so maybe he should stay. So we did.
And he was living with you during this time, but it was just temporary. And
yeah,
sure
he was still technically up as a foster dog. Okay. So we still had him as a foster dog. I competed in the Skyhounds regionals. Okay. As technically a foster dog, and I was like announcing like he's up for adoption because we traveled to Indiana because we didn't really have much disc competitions here. Yeah. We're like, well, I took him to some weight pull competitions and, you know, didn't really get any interest there for people that wanted him as a weight pull dog. So I thought, well, maybe the same thing, you know, I could go to the disc dog. I didn't know the community that well, but again, saw the same thing, you know, everybody had 5 dogs, you know, and they're like, well, if he was good with dogs, you know, that'd be one thing, but if he's, you know, since he's not good with dogs. And Wallace back then was often the only pit bull at the competitions because, you know, it's typically border collies, cattle dogs, you know, etc. Yeah. So, you know, not only was he not good with other dogs, but, you know, he wasn't the type of dog that they were typically, you know, so that they would typically use. So it's like, are they gonna, you know, take a chance on a pit bull type of thing? And but it worked out for me. So and him, I think too.
Yeah, so. Yeah, he's famous. Yeah. So when Wallace encountered some health issues, and when he was diagnosed with cancer, so was he diagnosed twice? Or
yes.
Was it, yeah, so the second time he was diagnosed, you knew it was pretty terminal, like he didn't have long to live. Right. And you created a bucket list for him. And I'm interested in that. Yeah.
So it was actually, the bucket list came after the first cancer, actually. Okay. So, and it was kind of a hard hit to us, to be honest, because, you know, the book came out in kind of his retirement. You know, we had stopped competing. I was just kind of letting him be a dog. You know, everybody saw Wallace as this superstar frisbee dog, you know, and kind of what we put online, but not a lot of people saw Wallace as just like the dog, you know, just like our family dog. And so I was kind of looking forward to people getting to know Wallace with the book, because we were planning on, you know, now that the book was released, we could go on tours and, you know, like go to book signings and let them actually meet Wallace rather than just watch him catch frisbees on a screen, you know. Our very first book signing was in my hometown of Illinois, and we went to a disc dog competition that weekend, and we were heading back home, and that's when he kind of collapsed. And fortunately, we were 5 minutes away from an ER vet. Okay. Made it there in time. He was basically bleeding out because one of his tumors burst. It's called hemangiosarcoma, is the cancer that he had. It targets the blood vessels, and so it a lot of times occurs in the spleen because that's such a vascular organ, and so that's what happened. And so fortunately it was localized to the spleen in his case. We didn't know for sure that's what it was. That's what they told us it probably was, and so we had to make a call. It was like, all right, he's bleeding out right now. you either have and it's due to his spleen. So we can either take his spleen out, put him through surgery, take his spleen out, hope it's not hemangiosarcoma, because the prognosis for hemangiosarcoma was like 2 weeks to 3 months. So it's like, do you put a dog through surgery to get another 2 months, 3 months out of, you know, do I do that to him, you know? Or do I say goodbye to him like right now? You know, and it's just like...
After your book signing and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. And it's just like...
Wow.
Yeah, it was, you know, just like total smack in the face, you know? And we didn't, I didn't know what to do. They weren't sure that it was hemangiosarcoma. We weren't ready to say goodbye just yet. It seemed like very localized to the spleen. Dogs can live without a spleen. He was really healthy up to that point, you know, so we're like, well, let's go through the surgery, hope it's not hemangiosarcoma, cross our fingers and, you know, see what happens. So made it through the surgery. Unfortunately, it was hemangiosarcoma. So now we get the word that it's 2 weeks to 3 months. If you don't do chemo, that's his life expectancy. So it's like by the time he recovers from the surgery, he could die again. If you did the chemo, the prognosis was 6 months. So it's like, do you put your dog through chemo just to get another couple months out of it, you know? It is a different chemo, so it's not necessarily trying to rid the body of the cancer like we go through. It's kind of a minimal dose just to try and prolong it, you know. But at the same time, you know, it is chemo. So, and Wallace had just a history of health issues, and so we were a little hesitant to do that to him because, like, some dogs can tolerate it just fine, and we got messages from a lot of people saying, yeah, my dog was just great on the chemo treatment, you know, they dosed it right, so, you know, it did prolong, and they seemed to not really get sick and that kind of stuff. So, but Wallace just had a history of bad luck when it comes to health and that kind of stuff, so we're like, you know, I found a mushroom derivative. Somebody sent, actually I didn't find it, somebody sent it to me. They sent a study in comments of when we posted what he had the hemangiosarcoma. And it was a study that somebody did with this mushroom derivative with dogs with hemangiosarcoma, and they dosed it differently, and the dogs with the highest dose did the best with no side effects. And they actually like were out like increased, or these dogs with the high doses of this mushroom had lived like 9 months.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, all right. So that's kind of what we did. And I looked at the study. Fortunately, like I said, I kind of have a science background. And so I was looking at it, I read through the study, and I'm like, it's a very small population. Like, it's a very small sample population, but I'm like, the study is actually done well. You know, I'm like, what else do we got to lose? You know, so we're like, we decided to not do chemo. We gave him, it's immunity. It's Hey Scooby. You hear the clicking?
If you hear
the clicking on the video, it's Scooby walking around.
I want to be famous, Dad.
So we had this mushroom, and we just went with that. And so we didn't know how long he would have. The thing with hemangiosarcoma is they're really good until they're not.
That's pretty drastic.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah, and so what happens, because it's kind of targeting the blood vessels and whatnot, it basically, one of those will burst and they bleed out. And that's what happened the first time. Like, he was great. He was good. All of a sudden, one of those tumors probably burst, and then you just bleed out internally. So that's kind of what we're waiting for, not waiting for, but that's in our in the back of our head, like, all right, who knows when this is going to be, so let's try and do what we can with it. And Clara came up with the bucket list, and it's like, all right, we don't know when he's going to pass away, but let's make the best of our time that we have with him. And so we created a list that we thought he would enjoy, you know, stuff that we thought would be fun, that, you know, and just stuff that he'd want to do as a dog, stuff that we want to do with him as dog owners. And we made the list. It was riding a motorcycle sidecar, you know. So it was amazing too, like all of Wallace's fans that like stepped up to make this stuff happen as well. Like we put the bucket list out there, and all of a sudden I got a message from a gal that we went to college with, who I think her uncle. I think it was uncle or cousin. I'm pretty sure his uncle had, or I don't know. It was like a couple of people removed had a motorcycle with a sidecar that was up in northern Minnesota, and so she got us in touch with him, and he's like, "Yeah, come on up." And so we went up there. Never met the guy, but he let us like take his motorcycle and sidecar out with Wallace, because he actually bought the motorcycle with sidecar for him and his wife. But his wife didn't like riding in it.
Yeah, I wonder why.
So the dog, he had a golden retriever named Sarge, I think, that would always ride in it. So he was used to having the dog there, so he like helped us like finagle it and whatnot. So, you know, and then we put on there Meet Betty White, you know, and fortunately I have an aunt that worked on the set for Hot in Cleveland. And so when we were on a trip out to California, and she's like, "I think I can actually get you, you know, set up to meet Betty White on her lunch break in between." Yeah, and it was awesome, and she was so cool. Yeah, she's amazing, and you know, just stuff like that. He'd never been to the ocean, so we went on our trip to California. We got to see the ocean. I had a little bit of fun with it. He always liked to hold stuff in his mouth and like swing stuff, like he had sticks in his mouth or whatever. So I was like, you know, I could probably get a golf club in his mouth. And so I was like, how cool would it be to have a dog get a hole-in-one? And so I set this like mini golf course contraption up. Like we went upstairs, and I put this, I had this block of foam. I put a tee with the golf ball on it, and it was right next to the stairs. And so he like hit the ball up, and it bounced down the stairs, and I had it funnel into this little teeny ramp, and then it eventually like went down the ramp, and I had one of those little like office putting greens, you know. And I went down in there and actually got in the hole, so we're like, got a hole in one, you know. But yeah, just stuff like that. It was awesome. So, and he ended up like exceeding his life expectancy. So we pretty much made it through the first list. And then, so we're like, well, we got to add to the list, you know, so we just added more stuff. One thing, we didn't get on Ellen, unfortunately. That didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good goal.
But that was a big one, you know. We weren't necessarily expecting that one, but it would have been pretty sweet. But, so that one's still out there. So Ellen, if you ever watch this.
Yeah, I'm sure she's watching. You want to throw me a bone too? That'd be good for both of us, right?
Exactly. It's like, come on. Make this happen. So, I have a couple connections there actually, but it never quite worked out. So, we just kept adding to the list, and he ended up living almost a year.
Wow.
On this mushroom. He was on a bunch of other supplements. We had a really cool holistic vet out in Red Wing, Bluffs, I think. My wife takes care of all that stuff. Yeah. So. Props to her for knowing what that is. So.
It's a team operation.
Oh yeah. People don't realize all the stuff that she does behind the scenes. So it's pretty important. So, but so he ended up getting a second cancer, or transitional cell carcinoma is what he got at the very end. And that's the reason we ended up having to make that decision. He was getting uncomfortable. They did some scans, and the vets couldn't believe that, you know, his hemangiosarcoma had not come back yet. I think on the last scans that we did, they didn't really see too many signs of it, but the transitional cell carcinoma was kind of taking hold, and that's, you know, was making him pretty uncomfortable. And so once it got to the point where he was more uncomfortable than comfortable, you know, then unfortunately you gotta make the call. So, and it was, but it was about as good of a day as you could have. You know, it was nice. We were able to. I think I was home from work that day, so we just let him walk around here to kind of do what he wanted, and it was sun was shining, so we got to, you know, just lay in the sun, and then vets came over to the house and went out. So that
And what a year to have. What a last year for
Oh
him.
yeah, it was awesome. So one of these days I'll actually, I did a bunch of videos of a lot of those bucket list items.
Yeah.
But one of these days I think it'd be really cool just to, Claire and I have always talked about doing like a bucket list video, like almost making it like a short film or something, because we have a lot of footage from it. We have footage from the sidecar ride, you know, picture of us with Betty White, the picture at the, or photos of the beach. We took him to the dog park. We actually, and he wasn't good with dogs, so we went like first thing in the morning.
Okay, but
and there was nobody there, and I was like, but how many smells would he enjoy smelling at the dog park, right? So it's like, this is something that the dog needs to do, you know, like that's what dogs want, you know, they get out, explore, smell as much stuff as they can. So we went super early. We actually put a sign on there. We locked it, but we put a sign on there that said, you know, we're here. And if somebody would have came, you know, we would have got out of there, but we just kind of made it safe, like I said, because he wasn't good with dogs. But so it was a great time. Yeah, there was a nice frost on the thing. We got to play disc one last time at Soldiers Field. Footage of that is amazing. That's the one that really gets, if you have a box of tissues ready for that one, if you see that one online. Cause
this is all really emotional, I imagine. Like, I don't have a dog, but I can imagine,
No, it was super foggy night. It was incredible. So, I don't know. So
there's just I love when you're talking about the people who kind of pulled together to make all this happen for him. I think there's something really that translates about his story, especially when I was reading things that you wrote about him, or even just you talking about him now. There's a lot there about you know, a type of animal that's judged consistently. There's all these conceptions about what this animal is going to do and all the negative aspects, and like all the delightful times you have with Wallace in spite of that, and in spite of how people think he should act. I don't know, there's something really universal there. Like when I was reading one of your pieces, I think it was one you wrote for the Huffington Post, just how you described him, it made me think so much of human experience too. So like, what have you learned from Wallace that translates to things beyond dogs? Even though they're very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, it was, you know, so many times in life, you know, I think we're kind of told this and told that, you know, and it's really hard to go against that sometimes, you know, especially when, you know, it's kind of personal to us, or maybe we have our own self-doubts or our own self-perceptions, or, you know, and it's like, I think a lot of people were kind of afraid to fail, if you will, you know, because we don't want to fail, you know, but something that really just resonated with me is Wallace didn't care if he failed at all. You know, it's like Wallace didn't know that all these people were saying these things about him. He didn't know that he wasn't supposed to be a Frisbee dog, because that's not what pit bulls do. You know, he had none of these preconceptions about him within him. Right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, I want to catch that Frisbee, so I'm going to go catch that Frisbee, and I'm going to try my best to catch that Frisbee.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, he wasn't the fastest dog on the field, he wasn't the highest jumping dog on the field, but he always worked his rear end off. Like, he threw everything he had into whatever he did. And because of that is why I think, you know, he was so successful. You know, I never had to worry about, was he gonna be with me that day, you know, out on the field. You know, there's some other dogs would kind of check out, you know, and like, or they get distracted or this kind of, you know, they weren't all in all the time. He was all in all the time. And, you know, just like, if I could take that to stuff that I do with my life, you know, it's like, what could I accomplish? You know, and that's been kind of a driving force ever since we've been with him. You know, I'm not as good I'm not as good as he was, you know, but it's something that I aspire to, that I try to, you know, kind of remind myself when I'm doubting myself. You know, it's like, can I do this? I don't know. But the only way you're going to find out is if you try it. And if you try it and you fail, then you learn from it, you move on, and you try again, and you try again. And it's like, it's really gotten me over my fear of failing, because the only cheesy, cliche, but the only way you really fail is if you don't do it. You know, that's how you truly fail in my mind now. You know, so and some things, you know, it's different if you just don't want to do it. That's one thing, but if you want to do it and you never have the courage to try it, that's a failure in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but
that does. And just to think that if you hadn't seen that in Wallace, and not that you said you didn't even see that or feel that connection instantly, but you gave him a chance. And even how you said that he was treated a little differently because he was a pit bull, and maybe he wasn't, you know, any worse than some of the other dogs who were misbehaving, but because he was a pit bull, he was treated a certain way. That translates so well into the world, I think, too. Like, there's just, you know, people are judgmental, and all these people don't get a chance to recognize. These dogs all agree. They're like, yeah. Bring it home.
What's up, man?
Yeah. Oh, we gotta bring them in. Yeah. Oh, hi. So who do we have here? You have to introduce.
This is Angus. This is Wallace's only dog friend. He's amazing. He was one of the first dogs that we adopted way back in the day, and he was the dog that was on the sideline with me at American Ninja Warrior.
Oh, Angus was there with you?
He was there with me.
Oh,
cheering me on.
Oh, okay. I have a few more questions for you. Maybe Angus can help answer them. The one I have, I don't want to misquote you, so I want to bring this out because I just love what you said here. But this is from the article I was talking about, and it's a comment you made about fear. And you said, fear is an interesting thing. On one side, it makes us cautious and can keep us safe. On the other, it can imprison us by limiting what we're able to experience. How we choose to respond to our fears can dictate our lives quite a bit. And I love that. I love that quote. Like, that's something that I think you touched on it just now. But I'm wondering, how do you, or were there ever times where you let fear dictate decisions in your life? And how do you prevent that from happening now? You kind of touched on how you do now, but...
That's a really good question. I mean, I think we're faced with that kind of stuff every single day. You know, it's like all the choices that we make, or all the things that we're faced with on a daily basis, you have to make a choice on all of that, you know, and some of them are more impactful than others, you know, and I think that when you when you're dealing with a more impactful one, there's more consequence, and anytime you're dealing with more consequence, then, you know, it's like, you know, those are the ones that really, for me, I want to make the right choice, you know, because I know that, you know, it's a consequence one way or the other, and I used to, and I still do, I kind of go over that over and over in my head. I'm like, am I making the right choice? Am I doing the right thing? What's going to happen if I do this and I try and step through it? If I do this, I step through that. And then, you know, when you get too wrapped up in that, you know, that's when I start doubting, like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, that's debilitating.
Yeah, you know, and so you just have to, I've gotten a lot better now, you know, as a result of this, just to be like, weigh the options, make a choice. If it doesn't work out, it's not this end of the world situation. You know, it's like, all right, now I know that.
Yeah.
And that's like, am I still here? Still got my dogs. Still got my wife. Roof over my head. You know, everything's still good. It's like, hey, all right, that's part of the process.
Sorry, Angus.
That's part of the process to actually figure out what the right thing is.
Yeah.
And so instead of being like, this one thing is going to make or break my life, it's like, no, that's part of my life. You know, and if it's a tough decision, maybe it's not the right decision. That's, in my opinion, when we learn a lot as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you find out who you are when things aren't going your way, you know? That's when you truly got to take a gut check and be like, all right, who am I going to be here? You know, and I think the more you can deal with that stuff, the more you can move past that stuff, the more you can learn how to deal with that stuff, is how you accumulate experiences throughout your life, and then you're able to deal with more later on.
The first person I interviewed for this said to me one of the best quotes I've ever heard. Fear is energy that's corrupt by misunderstanding. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, because you can use fear as such an informative thing in your life, or just experiences that you might be afraid of. And if you treat them, like you said, not as life or death, there's something so freeing there. So,
and I think a lot of people use fear too, like, if they're fearful, they try and almost instill that on others, trying to protect them and keep them safe. And like I said, there's certain truths to that. I'm not saying don't be afraid of anything. But at the same time, I think a lot of those things are just because people aren't knowledgeable about the situation, and so it really, like you said, imprisons you, and it manipulates that. So you need to just kind of keep that in mind. That didn't really go where I was expecting it. Like, I had a point, and I totally lost track of it.
It's this beautiful dog over here. No, I think that's so useful, and I love how that came out of a situation with a dog a type of dog or breed that strikes so much fear into people. I think that's beautiful. So I have a question just about you now.
Sure.
When do you feel most successful, Roo? This is a hard one. I think it's ongoing, but right now in your life, where do you think you define success?
That's a really good question.
It's probably the most difficult one.
I think I find there's different versions of it for me. Personally, I feel successful when I overcome something that I wasn't able to do previously. Because then that's showing that I'm learning and I'm growing. Whether it's not just necessarily skills, like, now I can go up a 15-foot warped wall instead of a 14-foot warped wall. It's like that's good, but also just in life, it's like you're constantly being thrown curveballs, and whether or not you can react to those accordingly. I constantly strive to not get worked up about stuff that's potentially going wrong, or stuff that happens. It's like, all right, just remain calm, deal with this appropriately, move forward, move on. I've gotten a lot better at that over the years. Externally, I'd really like to just help people and do good things for people. And so when I'm get an email from somebody that that they saw what I've done online or with Wallace or Hector or on the show or anything like that, and it says that I've inspired them to be more active, or inspired them to think about a situation differently, just to kind of, that I challenge somebody in a way that they responded to positively. I think is really cool. That's probably one of the things that I get most proud of, I guess, when that happens, because there's a lot of people that, we have these differences in opinions, and unfortunately, especially on the social media world these days, it becomes a debate, it becomes a fight. It becomes a fight. It becomes
people are always civil on social media.
Right? And it just turns into this thing that it doesn't really need to be. And so, when I can take something like a controversial topic like pit bulls, or whatever that is, and have a conversation with somebody, a civil conversation with them, and I'm going to learn from them, hopefully they'll learn from me, and if we can, kind of continue to deal with things that way, it's pretty cool experience in my mind, because while there are really ignorant, hateful people out there, I don't think most people are. At least I try to believe that, and so it's like we need to be rational about stuff, and kind of meet halfway, respect the other side, and have a conversation, because very few things are black and white, and there's a lot of gray in there, and I think that we need to converse about the gray a lot more than argue about the black and white extremes.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I really want to just capture that last like half minute and put it on as like what my mission is for the Conversationalist, because that is so true. That's the whole reason I started this conversation, because there's so much that's lost when you don't talk about things.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep.
I think if you give another human being, or even a dog, the decency of open-mindedness and a conversation, if it's a human being or a dog, I guess, then there's so much that could be solved. So.
Yeah. I think that we had our other dog, Hector, you know, and it was interesting talking about like preconceptions and stereotypes and all that kind of stuff. Hector was the dog from the Michael Vick case that we adopted. He was from a dogfighting situation, and he was a freaking rock star. And it was like, we don't know what we don't know until we actually go in and find out, you know. And that's something else that I've kind of taken with Wallace, and Hector just really kind of cemented that in there. Is like, I had, even myself wanting to be speak up for these dogs, had my preconceived notions about Hector. He had scars all down his chest. We wanted to adopt a dog from that situation because we thought it'd be a great opportunity, not only for them, but to continue what we were doing with Wallace on a bigger scale, to help dogs everywhere. That was our goal for that one. And, you know, just to, even with that in mind, I had preconceived notions about Hector.
Okay.
How could a dog from that situation with scars down his chest be good with dogs? And we have Wallace, who actually was raised with another dog, and he wasn't good with other dogs, you know? And if you took those two side by side, and you had to pick which one was the dog that wasn't good with dogs, which one did you pick?
Yeah,
right?
I think that Hector would.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
And it's just like, but that wasn't the case. And so it really drove home that, you know, we all have our opinions, but a lot of times those opinions may not be knowledgeable ones. And so just keep an open mind as far as trying to prove yourself wrong, you know. So it's like, be open to prove yourself wrong, because who knows what's going to happen. You know, you just might do it.
Yeah.
And it just might be something really cool.
Yeah.
you know? So.